Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Pallava Girivadadari Gopi Jana Pallava Girivadadari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Shri Gaurani Tai ki jai, Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai, Krishna Balaram Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrinda Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani, Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami's disappearance day ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you for coming. So today is also a very auspicious day of Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami's disappearance day, one of our great acharyas in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll probably do a shorter class and try and say a few words about him as well. If that's okay. With your permission. This is his Ishta Devi sitting here. Gopal Goswami's life and soul. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're on the third canto, chapter 24, text number 5. Narayanam namaskritam narochanam narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tatrojayam ujirayet nastapadeshu badreshu nityam bhagavate sevaya Bhakti Bhavati Nuishti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Just repeat after. Matra Ubacha. Deva Chapi Sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Samyak Shadaya Purusham Uttastam Abhajad Gurum Matraya Ubacha Devahutyapi Sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Samyak Shadaya Purusham Uttastam Abhajad Gurum Matra Ubacha Devahutyapi Sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Samyak Shadaya Purusham Uttastam Abhajad Gurum. Others, please. Matayo Bacha Devahutya Sandesham Guravena Prajapate Uttastam Abhajad Gurum Matayo Bacha Samrashadaya Purusham Utustama Pachakuru. Vaishnavis, please. Matrayuvacha Devahutati Sandesham Govardhana Prajapati Samyasaya Purusham Yasama Bhajaguru Matrayuvacha Devahutati Sandesham Govardhana Prajapati Samyakshadaya Purusham Utostama Prajaguru. Okay, word for word. Matrayuvacha. Maitreya said, Devahuti, Api, also, Sandesham, the direction, Gauravena, with great respect, Prajapate, of Kadama, Samyak, complete, Shadaya, having faith in, Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kutastam, situated in everyone's heart, Abhajat, worshipped, Gurum, most worshipable. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Maitreya said, Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful towards the direction of her husband, Kadama, who was one of the Prajapatis, or generators of human beings in the universe. O great sage, she thus began to worship the Master of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. Repeatedly, Sri Maitreya said, same thing. Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful towards the direction of her husband, Kadama, who was one of the Prajapatis, or generators of human beings in the universe. O great sage, she thus began to worship the Master of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. Purport. This is the process of spiritual realization. One has to receive instruction from a bona fide spiritual master. Kadama Muni was Devahuti's husband, but because he instructed her on how to achieve spiritual perfection, he naturally became her spiritual master also. There are many instances wherein the husband becomes a spiritual master. Lord Shiva also is a spiritual master of his consort Parvati. A husband should be so enlightened that he should become the spiritual master of his wife in order to enlighten her in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Generally, Stri or woman is less intelligent than man. Therefore, if the husband is intelligent enough, the woman gets a great opportunity for spiritual enlightenment. Here it is clearly said, Samyak Shadaya, that with great faith one should receive knowledge from the spiritual master and with great faith execute the performance of service. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, has especially stressed the instructions of the spiritual master. One should accept the instructions of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. Whether one is liberated or not liberated, one should execute the instructions of the spiritual master with great faith. It is also stated that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. One does not have to seek the Lord outside. He is already there. One simply has to concentrate on one's worship in good faith, as instructed by the bona fide spiritual master, and one's efforts will come out successfully. It is also clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not appear as an ordinary child. He appears as he is, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. He appears by his own internal potency, Atmamaya. And how does he appear? He appears when he's pleased by the worship of a devotee. A devotee may ask the Lord to appear as her son. The Lord is already sitting within the heart, and if he comes out from the body of a devotee, it does not mean that the particular woman became his mother in the material sense. He is always there, but in order to please his devotee, he appears as her son. Translation again. Sri Maitreya said Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful towards the direction of her husband, Kadama, who was one of the Prajapatis or generators of human beings in the universe. O great sage, she's thus begun to worship the Master of the Universe, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. Excuse me, I'm a little bit tired today. Om Ganati Mirandasya Ganam Ganasakaya Sakshush Unmilitam Jena Tasmae Shri Guruve Namaha Panchakalpaturu Vishya Kripasindu Bevisha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Just got to leave enough time. It's a very wonderful purport, very important purport. So here in this ongoing pastime, and we see Devahuti is now, you could say, becoming a little bit more spiritually awakened. She's starting to realise maybe I wasted a bit too much time in sense gratification, and I should have taken a bit more advantage of my exalted, advanced husband, Gadama Muni, who's a great sage, and she's also a very great personality herself. And now she's starting to inquire and lament and inquire. So it's got into the purport speaks a lot about the spiritual master, but in one sense the word spiritual master, our understanding is a plural term because we have our Diksha Guru, but we have many Siksha Gurus. And sometimes this is a bit misunderstood in our society. We put a lot of emphasis on our Diksha, and we don't, we sort of focus on that one single person and think that's it. But it's not. If you study, especially the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, you'll see there wasn't a lot of emphasis on Diksha. People weren't even queuing up to take initiation from Lord Chaitanya. Christian, they won't, even though some did, but they were taken from different devotees, but they were all followers of Lord Chaitanya. And this is a similar situation we have in ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya, and the GBC made it very clear, they passed a motion years ago, Srila Prabhupada is a preeminent Siksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees. So he's our spiritual master for all of us, because we've just read from we're reading his purports, taking his instructions, serving his movement. So he's the most important of our spiritual masters in that sense. And when our living gurus take us as disciples, they introduce us to Prabhupada, they connect us to Prabhupada. It's very, very important to have that living guru to make that connection. And then you connect it to the whole Parampara. So, and again, I wanted to bring this up, even though it comes up all the time, this poor old ladies, you seem to cop it all the time, but women are less intelligent. I just want to say something that will give us all a bit of hope and better understanding. I was playing around as we do with our Veda base or our folio. If you type in the phrase less intelligent, it comes up, I think it was 1,200 or 2,000, like incredible amount of time, a lot of times. Then if you add woman, less intelligent, only comes up about 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 times. Interesting, eh? So most of the time it's referring to men. Has been foolish, rascal, stupid, isn't it? So just bear that in mind when you read such phrases. That Prabhupada rarely mentions this phrase, but it's in context to Devahuti's lamentations. She's feeling herself a bit less intelligent from that point of view, but she's not. That's also her humility, and we see Queen Kunti also speaks that way. These are exalted personalities. They're setting an example of a mood. They're not really identifying with their body, but they're cursing that type of body as perhaps less fortunate, but that's so debatable, especially in this age. We're all born lower than Sudras, so nobody can claim to be that intelligent. Our intelligence is given to us by our spiritual master, and that says if you follow the instructions of a spiritual master, then you become real intelligent. Yajanti Isu Meda Sahakna, in the 11th canto, Krishna Vanam Tushna Krishnam. The intelligent people, they worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by engaging in Sankirtan, in chanting of the holy name. So that's a sign of real intelligence, and it's not based on being a man or a woman. I didn't want to get too caught up on this point. It gets brought up a lot. But the point is, it doesn't get brought up a lot. It's rarely mentioned in Prabhupada's. And that's the folio where it has all these conversations and lectures and books. Very rare. So don't hang your hat on it. But the guys have got a lot to answer to, because we come up a lot. And it also, when Prabhupada uses the term men, it means men and women also. So we're all in the same boat. So I'll leave it there, because it's not worth speaking about that much. So this, the significance of taking shelter of spiritual master is, it's rare. Brahmana Konya Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasad Poi Bhakti Lata Bij. And the living entities wandering. I mean, we can't even imagine how long we've been wandering in these universes for. And not just this universe, other universe, coming and going, body after body. But if somehow or other it says, if you can come in contact with a pure devotee, with a spiritual master, that is very, very rare, and receive that bhakti lata, that seed of devotion. Because bhakti is not something that's produced by karma. There's nothing you can do karmically, materially speaking, that you can, which will attain bhakti. It's not possible. So how do you get bhakti? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur poses that question. If bhakti is not a product of karma, then how do you get it? He asks, and then he answers the question. You get it from the madhyam adhikaris, from the madhyam, the preachers. That's all of us. We've received it from the madhyams, and we act as madhyams. We may not be the greatest or the purest or most advanced madhyam adhikaris, but madhyam is a platform by which you take compassion and you discriminate and you act to give Krishna to others. This is basically the basis of the Krishna consciousness movement. And we see, and in the Uttam, the highest devotees, they also step down to the madhyam platform, again, to preach. Otherwise, they're not able to preach. They're not able to discriminate, because they see Krishna in everyone and everywhere. So there's a wonderful example of the power and of the, you can say, of a most unqualified disciple and the extremely most qualified spiritual master. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Madhya Lila. Towards the end, he's instructing Srila Sanatana Goswami over many chapters. I think it's about 1,200 verses. Like if you think the Bhagavad Gita is 700, there's 1,200 verses that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks directly to Sanatana Goswami. For over 2 months, he instructed him, but that much is recorded there. And in that chapter 24, he's giving a breakdown analysis of the Atmarama verse, a famous verse from the first canto, 7th chapter, verse number 10. And Atmarama, I can't remember the Sanskrit. Anyway, so very, very well. And earlier on, he'd discussed it with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he gave 18 different meanings of this verse. Pretty extraordinary. But he was so enlivened in speaking to Srila Sanatana Goswami that he gave 61 different explanations of the one verse, breaking it down. And if you don't want to read the whole chapter, because it's 350 verses, of that, but you can read Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 7, 10, the actual verse, and Prabhupada gives a summary of that whole chapter in that purport, which is quite interesting, very interesting. Anyway, one of the meanings that he's discussing is the greatness and power of a pure devotee, a spiritual master, pure devotee. And he tells a story about a hunter. You all familiar with the story of the hunter? Anyone hasn't heard that? Anyway, I'll tell you anyhow. And it's significant. This is a story from the Skanda Purana, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is deciding to use this as an example of a great devotee, a powerful example. So in this story, which happened a long, long time ago, Srila Narada Muni was on his way back from the spirit Vaikuntha. He was on this realm and he was on his way to Prayag to take bath in the sacred rivers there. There was a gathering which they have every year there. And he was walking along the forest path and he saw a deer on the ground with an arrow through it, 4 broken legs, struggling in pain, suffering like anything. It was sort of moving around in intense pain. He was a bit struck by that, and then he walked a bit further and he saw a boar, similar situation. The boar had broken legs, spears through its head, and it was still alive and suffering like anything. And a bit further on he saw a rabbit in the same condition. And then he looked around and he saw, at a distance, he saw a hunter. This hunter is described as he was very dark, like black, reddish eyes, and looked very horrific, like death warmed up. And he was there, and then so Narada headed his way, and because Narada went in that direction, he was behind a tree hunter with his arrow ready to eat another animal. And because Narada came along, all the animals scattered away. And this hunter named Mrigari was he was upset. He was about to rebuke Narada Muni. But because of the potent presence of this great sage, he wasn't able to let those words out. So he had to control his speech. This was his first interaction with his future spiritual master. And we have to, when we analyse this story, we have to see the culture is so great, because this personality is not a Sudra, he's not a Vaishya, he's not a Kshatriya or Brahmin, he's lower. He's outside the Varnashram. He's a Malecha of some sort, But still, he understands the culture. This is a great sage. He acknowledges the significance of that personality. So that's the benefit of living in a Vedic culture. And this is one of the reasons Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, because people would offer him respect in that culture, and he'd be able to help them more than being in a household or where they were criticising him. So this Mrigari, the hunter, inquired from Narada Muni, how come you're off the path and come my way? I'm here hunting. And Narada Muni, I just want to ask you one thing. He says, why are you, I understand you're a hunter, but why are you killing these animals and not fully killing them? Why are you letting them suffer so much? He said, well, this is, my father taught me to hunt this way. Well, I take great pleasure when I see him suffer this way. So Narada Muni realised the mentality of this personality, very low mentality. Then he said to him, you're a hunter, that's your occupation, so killing, you have to do that. That's fair enough, but to kill and not to kill him properly and torture him and engage him in all that extra suffering, that's extremely sinful, much more sinful than just killing him. And the reaction is quite tough. You should maybe just kill him. And then, so now the Mrigari is hearing from the Guru. First he's control his speech, he's recognised he's an elevated personality, now he's hearing. Now he's going, and then he inquires, he said, what do I do? This is my profession. What do I do? I've been brought up this way, I don't know what else to do. So now he's inquiring from the Guru. So this is very rapidly making advancement. So this is why, I guess this is why, and the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu uses this example. Very low, unqualified potential disciple, very elevated Narada Muni. And then, so Narada Muni tells him that, the reaction is going to be, so what you have to do, I need you to break your bow and stop this killing anymore. I think he also offered him some gifts. The hunter he offered this when he first arrived. Again, that's a nice cultural thing to offer gifts to a great personality. He said, I've got some deer skin, some tiger skin, I'll give you whatever you like. He said, no, thank you. Narada Muni wanted to get to the bottom of this personality, this sinful propensity. So anyway, he told him, break your bow, go home, give all your things away in charity to qualified brahmanas. Tell your wife, bring your wife with you, build a little hut on the side of the river here. Just bring enough, just the clothes on your back. Plant a tulsi plant at the front of your house. Worship tulsi every day and chant Hare Krishna. But then the hunter said, how will I maintain myself? I do, because I make my living out of it. He said, don't worry, I'll send everything you need to you. So this hunter, now he's developed faith and trust in the instructions of the spiritual master. It's been discussed here, following the instructions. So he follows those instructions, goes back, tells his wife, and she's a great lady because she agrees. She could have said, no, I'm not. Then she might not want to give up her house and all this stuff. It's my stuff. You know, the cupboard's full of things. And if you go into a household life, there's a lot of stuff in houses. I mean, God, I look in the cupboards at home and go, where does this stuff come from? You know? It just keeps coming, accumulating. Anyhow, and you notice that when we've got with a couple of occasions we've had to take care of relatives that have passed away, and you've got to get rid of their stuff. Man, anything you can do is hire a skip. It's just insane. Anyway, so she was a great lady. So they did that. They went, and the word spread around very quickly. The Murari, the hunters, become a Vaishnava, and all the villagers were excited, and they started bringing things to him, like food, grains, and before then they had all the things they needed. They were getting brought now. And so they practiced, and they chanted, and they worshipped Tulsi, and became great devotees very, very quickly. The process of chanting Hare Krishna, especially while worshipping Tulsi Devi, is a very, very potent process. Anyhow, sometime later, Narada Muni decided to check in on him, and he brought his great friend, Pravada Muni, his travelling companion. They travel everywhere, great souls. And he said, come and see my disciple, the hunter. And Magrari from a distance saw his spiritual master, and he wanted to go to him. And it was sort of walking a bit funny, and we got to him, he wanted to pay his obeisance, but he couldn't because there was ants on the ground. Now he's worried about the ants. Before he was torturing animals, and he doesn't want to even step on an ant. How much advancement has he made? He sees Krishna in the heart of all living entities, respectful and caring towards all living entities. And he got a cloth and very carefully brushed them out of the way and offered his obeisance to his guru, offered him some seeds, some water. And Pravada Muni was in awe. He said, Narada Muni, you're such a wonderful devotee. You're like a touchstone. You were incredible. Look what you've done. He was so impressed by the potency and the mercy of Narada Muni. So we have to learn from this, because if you analyse the Hare Krishna movement, you can see what happened. It's very, very much a similar thing. Srila Prabhupada came along, and we weren't certainly qualified personalities, and if you go back, especially in the early days. But you can see the power, and by the power, design, mercy and then the soft heart of the great personalities, all sorts of unqualified people can become uplifted and qualified. And it's important to remember this, that we can never think that we're so great, or qualified anyway, because really, we are simply the byproducts of the causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his followers. That's it. We're so fortunate. Brahmana, Konya, but we've been wandering for so long. Now we've been given this opportunity. So it's very, very rare. And it's important to keep this meditation with us always, because we're always at the mercy. We're always receiving that mercy. We're dependent on it. We're not just struggling on our own. We're always got the help. The help is always there. And it's not just our spiritual master, it's all the spiritual masters. It's the parampara right through to all the great personalities in our line coming from Lord Chaitanya, extraordinary personalities, and they're all bestowing their mercy upon us. Anyway, I'm going to run out of time. You can speak a lot on this verse and purport, but we have to speak on Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he's a very special personality. Did anyone want to ask a quick question or comment on this verse today? Magrari the hunter. All clear with him? Okay, good. So I've also brought, this is Gopal Bhatta Goswami Ishtadev. This is his very beloved deity, which we're going to hear about, Radha Raman. You can have a look later if you like. Very, very gorgeous. I was hoping he would bless me, so I brought him along. As you know, Gopal Bhatta Goswami is one of our 6 Goswamis, one of our primary instructing spiritual masters. They were direct followers of Lord Chaitanya, first line. These are really our most important spiritual masters, the Goswamis. They gave us that. took the instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they wrote them all down in a way to expand. They studied all the scriptures, and the way they worded everything, it's just they've given us the highest spiritual understanding in ways that little common people like ourselves can get a glimpse. So we're very grateful to them. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami is first mentioned in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he briefly went to Puri, then he went on a 6-year tour of South India, touring and preaching. And it's described in the year, what was it? 1511, I think it was, 1511, which is basically 1 year after he took sannyas, more or less. He would have been 25 years of age. It's very beautiful, effulgent, ecstatic sannyasi Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to. So he was travelling through, he went to Sri Rangakshetra. It's a very, very famous, magnificent temple, South India. It's on an island on the Kaveri River, and it was a massive complex. He went there, and it was like hundreds of thousands of guests coming and going, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was ecstatically chanting and dancing, and wandering into the temple, and there was hundreds of brahmanas chanting. Very beautiful setting, very ancient setting, like things used to be. And everyone was in awe by this very beautiful, beautiful young sannyasi. They were trying to work out who he was. I thought maybe he's a demigod or he's something. He was just absolutely, I was struck with wonder. And he was dancing and chanting very sweetly. And there was one devotee there called Venkata Bhatta. Couldn't figure. I always muddle up his name. Venkata Bhatta, or sometimes Vyankata or Vankata. But Venkata Bhatta was there as one of the priests there, and he immediately started keeping people aside so Mahaprabhu could continue his kirtan. And eventually that subsided, and Mahaprabhu came back to external consciousness. Venkata Bhatta paid his obeisance. Mahaprabhu embraced him. And Venkata Bhatta was so attracted to this personality, and he invited him back to his home. And there his whole family was there, and they washed Mahaprabhu's feet. And they all drank the water, the whole family. Would you like to drink some of that water? I would. Anyway, and then he had 3 sons there. There was one, I can't even remember the older one. Tirumala? Anyway, Tirumala Bhatta, yeah. And there was, next one was the great, I think his name was Gopal Guru initially. He became the great Prabodhananda Saraswati, a great Tridandi sannyasi in the Ramanuja line. And then the youngest one was little Gopal Bhatta. And he would have been approximately around 8 years of age at the time. He was in love with Mahaprabhu. You know? He was so attracted to him. And he would do menial services, and he would massage Mahaprabhu's feet and bring his prasad and clean up. Mahaprabhu would sit him on his lap and feed him his remnants. You like to sit on Mahaprabhu's lap and eat his remnants? And they had a very sweet relationship, and it's described, they actually discussed very elevated subject matters. Because and we find out Mahaprabhu you understand when the Lord comes, all these great personalities come with him, so they're not ordinary personalities. It's described in the Govardhana Dipika of Kavi Kanipur. We're so grateful to him for give us an insight. He tells us all the personalities, who they are in Chaitanya Lila and in Vrindavan Lila. So we find out Gopal Bhatta Goswami is a Nanga Manjari, right? Who's actually the younger sister of Srimati Radharani. Very special personality. So they can see there was a connection there was an attraction, natural attraction, because Gauranga Mahaprabhu's Radha and Krishna combined like that were in the mood of Radharani. So there was a very, very deep attachment, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed there for 4 months for the whole Chaturmasya. Because sages would travel, and then during the rainy season, as we know, they would park somewhere. So for 4 months they were able to hear Krishna Kirtan directly from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Can you imagine? Take his remnants and serve him and live with him. Apparently in that house there's like a in the ground where Mahaprabhu used to sleep, there's like a mark in the floor still, like that. So and then it was time for Mahaprabhu to leave. Little Gopal was he was fainting in pain of separation. This poor little, he couldn't bear it. He was begging Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take him with him, begging and begging. Lord Chaitanya told him, you've got to stay here and take care of your elderly parents. And then later on, then he instructed him, he said, later on you go to Vrindavan. So he had to stay. And I'll say this at this point, but this is the very, very last time the Gopal saw Lord Chaitanya. Very last time, when he was a little boy. Anyway, so he followed the instructions. Again, we're going back to the instructions of the spiritual master. Most important, we have the Vani and the Vapu, isn't it? You're familiar with that term? The Vapu is a direct association of the spiritual master in physical proximity and serving that way. And the Vani is the instructions, serving the instruction. So Srila Prabhupada says the following instructions are most important than having close proximity, physical proximity to the Guru, even though we like to be near the Guru. So he followed the instructions like that, even though he wanted to go on Mahaprabhu. He was a little boy. And then he grew up. He became the student and disciple of his older brother, Prabhupada Saraswati, who taught him for many years, up to the age of 30. Since that's another 22 years. And he taught him all the Bhakti Shastris and so many other things. So he became very, very learned in Sanskrit and grammar and so on. And then his parents got to the point where they left their bodies. They told Gopal, now go to Vrindavan, go to Lord Chaitanya. And they left their bodies and re-entered the eternal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. They were fully absorbed. By the way, Mahaprabhu converted these, even though they were Ramanuja's devotees, initiated in that line, they all became Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And there's nothing wrong with that because ultimately it's the same personality, Vishnu. They were Vishnu worshippers, now they're worshipping Lord Chaitanya, who's Vishnu also, or the source of Vishnu. So anyway, they became great devotees. Prabhupada Saraswati also spent a long time in Vrindavan himself. And so Gopal went there at the age of 30, and Rupa and Sanata were there and they welcomed him as a younger brother. Lord Chaitanya told them that he would come one day, so they were expecting him. And they wrote to Lord Chaitanya, he's arrived. Now this is 22 years later. Lord Chaitanya was 25 when he first came and met the little boy, and he's now 47, and we know Lord Chaitanya left at the age of 48. So it's very near the final pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And anyway, they wrote to him, and he was very happy. He wrote back and he sent some items, a little oki, like a little wooden table that Mahaprabhu used to use, or a little seat actually, he used to sit on. Some undergarments, kopans, and an upper garment. These are tadiya, personal prashadam of remnants of the Lord. Very dear to the devotees. They were given to Gopal Bhatta. His heart melted to receive such wonderful gifts. And he worshipped this paraphernalia during his whole life. It's actually said they're still there in the Radharaman temple. They still have them. And I think if you have good connections there, you might be able to get a private darshan of sort. I've never seen them. Have you seen them? Are they? Next to the Samadhi Gopi. Also Gopal Bhatta Goswami's Samadhi, his sacred tomb is in that place also. Because today's the actual day. He disappeared in 1586, which is 100 years after Lord Chaitanya appeared. Lord Chaitanya left at 48. It means he spent 52 years in separation after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance. So this is very intense. These devotees aren't ordinary devotees. He was there we're going to run out of time anyway. He was feeling separation, and Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a dream and said, go to Nepal and you'll find me there. So it's a long way to go on foot from Vrindavan to Nepal. Anyway, he travelled there, he went to the famous Kali Gandaki River, which is a very sacred river where Brahmanas have gone there over the years. You can chant mantras, put your hand in the water, and a shalagram shila will appear in your hand. Very, very, very powerful and sacred river. So he was there, that river, Gopal Bhatta, and he had his little water, what do they call that? He used to carry water pot. He was getting some water, and all these shalagrams jumped into his pot. He threw them back in the water. And then he tried to gather some water, and he jumped in again. They threw him back in the water. It happened 3 times, and he realised, oh man, this must be Krishna's mercy. So he kept these 12 Shalagram Shilas and brought them back to Vrindavan, and he began to worship him. He used to hang them on a cloth on a tree. Because remember, these Goswamis didn't have houses. They used to live in bushes and trees and little caves and wherever, you know. So their worship was quite simple. But he was feeling, he was worshipping these forms. They're mostly round forms, but they're all different. They have different markings which indicate various incarnations. One of those was a Gopal Shila, a little Gopal. Madan Mohan visits here every year. He travels with a little Gopal Shila. I get to get his darshan. So anyway, there was a rich merchant that came to town. He was very attracted to Gopal Bhatta, and he gave him gifts of decorations for the deities in cloth. And Gopal didn't really want to take it. He said, I can't dress my deities, they're little round stones, you know. But he said, you keep it. So he started developing a desire to worship the form of the Lord, and that intensified that desire. So much so. And on Lord Nrsimhadeva's appearance day, he was praying, you know, you've come out of a stone pillar, why can't you manifest to me, you know? And the next day, the very next day, he was getting really, really worked up. He had his shilas hanging on the tree, and he was saying, look, I'm going to go down to the river. If you don't manifest, I'm going to grab all of us, I'm going to throw ourselves in the river, and we're all going to drown. And it's described that, and that when he was in that intense mood, and remember, they're very advanced devotees. We can't talk to Krishna like that, but he can. It's described that the shilas were shaken in the bag from the intensity. Anyway, he went down, he came back, and he had a look, and one of his shilas had transformed manifested into Radha Raman. So you can have a close look. A very, very beautiful deity. And it's described that this deity had the face of Govinda, the chest of Gopinath. These are the principal 3 deities in Vrindavan, and the feet of Madan Mohan. And it says if you actually take darshan of these deities, equivalent to taking darshan of those 3 deities. Very, very beautiful deity, very small. And you can see on the back of it is still that original stone. We expanded from the stone. And the pundits tell us there that at one point some scientists came and they wanted to investigate to prove that actually it's not a self-manifest, and no such thing as a self-manifested deity. It's actually been carved. And they underwent all sorts of experiments, and they could not establish that it had been carved. There was no evidence of carving, because he's not carved, he's self-evident. Very detailed deity. You can see it's got little nails and teeth and everything. Very merciful, very kind. You can get, it's very extraordinary. Only small, you know, it's about 8 inches or so. And I mean, last time I was there was no one there. I was at full darshan. Yeah, I went there a long while ago. My boys were still young. We were doing a rush around all the principal temples, and the pujaris gave us a garland, and we got a lot of mercy that day. Got some prashadam. That deity of we're going to finish in a minute. There's so much want to be said about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Even though there's not much said about him, there's a lot to say about him. He didn't want to be mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was about to begin writing, he requested the mercy of various devotees, including Gopal Bhatta, and Gopal Bhatta said, I'll give you my blessings, but do not mention my name. So that's why he's hardly mentioned. I think he just touches on him very briefly. So this is their humility. And also Lokanath Maharaj was like that. Prabhupada was also like that. They didn't want to be mentioned and glorified. Anyway, so this is his transcendental disappearance day today, and we pray for his blessings and guidance. He was he served Srila Sanatana Goswami very nicely. He was considered like the younger brother. He did a lot of editing and writing, bhajan, Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And I want to say that one, but anyway. So it's his disappearance, and if you ever get a chance to go there and visit that sacred place, the Radha Raman temple, it's the only deity that the original deity is still there. The other deities were taken to Jaipur when the Muslim rulers were destroying temples and breaking deities. They were getting deities, and they were burying deities in staircases going to mosques. How offensive is that? Anyway, this temple, I'll finish very quickly now. This temple, it looks like a house on the outside, just a door, and it's got one of those crescents which looks like a Muslim house, you know. So they were never troubled. Like that, she was able to stay there. This wonderful place. And Tulsi Devi, Vrinda Devi also stayed. Vrinda Devi, that she didn't want to leave Vrindavan. But they're the only two that stayed. All the others went to Jaipur. Anyone want to say one last thing? Any comments on Gopal Bhatta? All glories to him. If you those who want to have a quick look, you can come up and see this beautiful deity. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Ki Jai, Gaur, Kamanandi, Devahuti, Ki Jai, Padama Muni Ki Jai.